Maya Rodriguez stepped off the transport ship and stared at the floating academy above her head. The massive structure hung in the air like a dream made real. Its crystal walls caught the light from 3 different suns and threw rainbows across. The forest below Maya had never seen anything like it in her 22 years on Earth as HFY. Academy of Xenobiology was supposed to be the best school in the galaxy. Maya was the first human ever accepted here. She should have felt proud. But instead her stomach twisted with worry. Other students walked past her without looking. Some had extra arms, some had blue skin that looked like water. Some were so tall they had to duck under doorways. Maya felt very small and very alone floating. Platform descended toward her. Maya climbed on and felt her feet leave the ground. The platform rose smoothly through the air, carrying her toward the academy entrance. As they got closer, Maya could see students moving through transparent hallways. Their conversations stopped when they saw her. Through the clear walls, she watched alien faces turn to stare. The platform docked at a landing bay filled with beings Maya had only seen in textbooks. A group of Zentarians stood nearby. Their 6 arms moved in complex patterns as they talked. Their crystalline skin reflected light in all directions, making Maya squint. One of them pointed at her and said something to the others in a language that sounded like breaking glass. Maya walked through the entrance hall, trying not to stare at everything around her. The walls were alive with moving pictures, showing creatures from 1,000 different worlds. Floating lights followed students as they walked, providing personal illumination. The floor felt soft under her feet, like walking on clouds, but it was solid enough to support everyone. She found the registration desk where a kind-looking alien with translucent blue skin waited behind a curved counter. The being had large eyes that seemed to glow from within. When she spoke, her voice sounded like flowing water. "I am Dr. Zara Velnith," said the blue-skinned alien. "You must be Maya Rodriguez. From Earth we have been expecting you. Welcome to the academy." "Thank you," Maya replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I am very excited to be here." Dr. Velnith handed Maya a small device that looked like a crystal teardrop. "This will translate any language you encounter and help you navigate the academy. It will also monitor your vital signs too. Ensure the atmospheric mix remains suitable for human biology." Maya clipped the device to her shirt collar immediately, feeling more confident as alien conversations around her became understandable. She could now hear what the other students were saying about her. Most of it was not very nice. "Look at how small she is," said a towering being with scales instead of skin. "How can something so primitive hope to understand xenobiology? Heard humans only discovered space travel a few hundred years ago," whispered another student. "Babies, compared to the rest of us, dear." Velnith noticed Maya wilting under the comments. Her glowing eyes grew brighter with what Maya hoped was kindness. "Do not let their words trouble you," she said softly. "Many students here have lived for centuries. They sometimes forget that wisdom comes in many forms." Maya nodded, but the comments still stung. She followed Dr. Velnith through corridors filled with impossible sights, classrooms where students worked with creatures that defied description, laboratories where beings in protective suits handled samples that glowed with their own light, gardens suspended in mid-air where plants from different worlds grew together in impossible harmony. They passed a group of students gathered around something Maya could not see clearly. As they got closer, she realized they were watching a demonstration. One student stood in the center, holding what looked like a small dragon. The creature was beautiful, with scales that shifted color like oil on water, but it was clearly agitated. Its wings flapped frantically, and it made distressed chirping sounds. The student holding the creature was trying to calm it down, but his methods seemed wrong to Maya. He held it too tightly. His movements were sharp and sudden. Everything about his body language screamed impatience and frustration. The little dragon responded by becoming more upset. Tall figure approached the group. Maya recognized him immediately from the academy materials. Professor Veltari Xgel, one of the most respected xenobiology experts in the galaxy. His 6 Centaurian arms moved independently as he gestured toward the struggling student. Your technique lacks precision, Professor Xchel said in a voice like grinding stone. You must dominate the creature completely, or it will never obey you. Force is the foundation of all successful creature management. Maya wanted to speak up. The professor was wrong. She had grown up around animals on her grandmother farm back on Earth. She knew that force only made frightened creatures more afraid, but she was new here. Who was she to question a famous professor? The student tried to follow the professor's advice, gripping the small dragon even tighter. The creature let out a sharp cry of pain and bit the student on the hand. The student yelped and dropped the dragon, which immediately flew away to hide behind a large plant. Professor Xgel's 6 eyes focused on Maya. For the first time she felt like a bug under a microscope. His crystalline features showed clear disapproval. Our primitive exchange student, he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Perhaps you would like to demonstrate human techniques for creature management. Maya felt every eye in the corridor turn toward her. Her face burned with embarrassment. She wanted to sink into the floor and disappear. Instead, she found herself stepping forward. The little dragon was still hiding behind the plant, clearly traumatized by its rough treatment. Maya approached slowly, keeping her movements smooth and predictable. She did not try to grab the creature. Instead, she sat down on the floor and waited. The other students began to murmur among themselves. One of them was an elf with long silver hair and pointed ears, who watched Maya with curious green eyes. The elf looked ancient, but moved with fluid grace that spoke of centuries of experience. Maya ignored the whispers and focused on the frightened dragon. She made soft clicking sounds with her tongue, the same way she used to call chickens on her grandmother farm. The dragon had peeked out from behind the plant. Its large eyes were still wide with fear, but curiosity was starting to replace panic. Slowly, very slowly, Maya extended one hand palm up toward the creature. She did not reach for it or make any threatening movements. She simply offered her hand and waited. The dragon considered this for a long moment, then it took one tentative step toward her. What is she doing? Whispered one of the students. Nothing useful, Professor Xchel replied with disgust. Humans always mistake weakness for kindness. This approach will accomplish nothing. But the little dragon continued to approach Maya. It sniffed at her outstretched hand, then climbed onto her palm with delicate claws. Maya felt the creature's rapid heartbeat slowly return to normal as it realized she meant no harm. When Maya finally stood up, the dragon perched contentedly on her shoulder, preening its scales back to their proper arrangement. The other students stared in silence. Even Professor Xgel seemed momentarily speechless. Though elf with silver hair stepped forward. Her ancient eyes studied Maya with new interest. How did you do that? She asked in a voice like wind through leaves. I am Liana Starweaver. I have been studying creature behavior for over a century, but I have never seen such a rapid calming response. Maya felt her cheeks warm under the elf's attention. I just treated it with respect, she said simply. Animals respond better to patience than force, Professor Xgel. 6 arms crossed over his chest in a gesture of clear annoyance. Patience is a luxury we cannot afford in proper xenobiology, he declared. Creatures must learn their place quickly and efficiently. Your human emotionalism has no place in serious academic study. The little dragon on Maya's shoulder chirped softly as if disagreeing with the professor. Maya gently placed the creature back in its proper enclosure, where it immediately settled down to rest. Several other students watched this with obvious surprise. Velnath appeared at Maya's elbow, looking pleased with what she had witnessed. Come, she said, I will show you to your dormitory. You have had enough excitement for your first day. As they walked away, Maya could hear the students behind them talking in excited whispers. Some seemed impressed by what they had seen. Others appeared skeptical. Professor Xchel's voice rose above the rest, declaring that humans would never understand the complexities of true xenobiology. Jemiah's room was small, but comfortable, with a window that looked out over the crystal forest below. Strange creatures moved through the trees. Their calls drifted up through the evening air, creating an alien symphony. Maya sat on her bed and tried to process everything that had happened. Our Velnith had warned her that some faculty and students might not welcome her presence at the academy, but Maya had not expected the hostility to be so obvious. Professor Xgel clearly wanted her to fail. The other students saw her as a primitive curiosity at best. Liana, the ancient elf, had shown any real interest in Maya methods. The way she moved and spoke suggested wisdom accumulated over many lifetimes. Maybe she would be willing to share some of that knowledge. Maya pulled out her personal communicator and started recording a message for her family back on Earth. She told them about the floating academy and the incredible creatures she had seen. She did not mention the hostility or her fears about fitting in her family. Worried enough already. Outside her window, the alien forest settled into evening routines. Creatures she could not identify called to each other across impossible distances. Stars began to appear in the sky, 3 different constellations visible at once. Maya had dreamed of this moment for years, studying xenobiology at the most prestigious academy in the galaxy. Now that she was here, the dream felt more like a challenge. Professor Xgel had made it clear that he expected her to fail. The other students saw her as an outsider who did not belong, but Maya had not come this far to give up easily. She thought about the little dragon and how quickly it had responded to gentle treatment. Maybe human approaches were different from what the academy usually taught. Maybe that difference could be a strength instead of a weakness. Maya fell asleep planning how she would prove that patience and empathy could accomplish more than force and domination. The next morning would bring new challenges and new opportunities to show what humans could contribute to the galaxy understanding of life in all its forms. Maya had been at the academy for 3 weeks when Professor Xgel announced the practical exam on Theragan shadow beasts. The creatures were known throughout the galaxy for their unpredictable behavior and psychic abilities. Most students spent months preparing for any interaction with them. The exam took place in the academy's largest creature hall, a vast space with adjustable environments. The shadow beasts had been brought from their home world in special containment units. Each student would be assigned 1 beast and asked to demonstrate basic communication and trust-building techniques. Maya stood with her classmates as Professor Xgel explained the rules. His 6 arms gestured dramatically as he spoke, making his crystalline skin catch the light in distracting patterns. The other students looked nervous, even Korthax, the proud draconian prince, who claimed his people had been taming creatures for millennia, seemed tense. These creatures respond only to superior mental discipline, the professor declared. They will sense any weakness or uncertainty and exploit it ruthlessly. Only those with proper training and focus will succeed, Maya noticed. Liana, standing nearby the elf, had been watching Maya during classes over the past few weeks. Sometimes she would nod approvingly when Maya used gentler techniques with study creatures. Other times she seemed puzzled by human methods that worked. Despite breaking established rules, the containment units were opened one by one, releasing the shadow beasts into individual testing areas. The creatures were beautiful in a haunting way. Their bodies seemed to be made of living darkness that shifted and flowed like liquid night. Their eyes glowed with silver light that felt like moonbeams. Korthax approached his assigned beast with the confidence his people were famous for. Draconians had natural psychic abilities and considered themselves superior to most other species. His scaled skin gleamed as he projected mental dominance toward the shadow beasts. The creature recoiled immediately, its form writhed and twisted as it backed away from Korthax's aggressive mental approach. The draconian prince pushed harder, trying to overwhelm the beast's defenses, but this only made the situation worse. The shadow beast let out a wailing sound that made everyone in the hall cover their ears. Maya watched other students struggle with similar problems. They all used the same basic approach taught at the academy: project mental strength and dominance, until the creature submitted. But the shadow beasts seemed to hate this treatment. They became more agitated and defensive with each attempt at control. When Maya's turn came, she approached her assigned shadow beast slowly. The creature watched her with those unsettling silver eyes. Its dark form rippled with tension, ready to flee or fight. Maya could feel something like whispers at the edge of her mind. The beast was trying to read her thoughts and emotions. Instead of fighting this mental contact, Maya relaxed and let her mind become calm. She thought about peaceful things, the farm where she grew up, the sound of rain on the roof at night, her grandmother, gentle hands, as she taught Maya to care for injured animals. The shadow beast stopped, backing away. Its silver eyes grew brighter as it sensed Maya's calm mental state. Tentatively, it reached out with its psychic abilities, touching the edges of Maya. Consciousness, she felt a moment of dizziness but did not resist the contact. "What is she doing?" whispered one of the other students. Maya ignored the voices around her and focused on the shadow beast. She could feel its confusion and loneliness. These creatures were highly social on their home world. Being isolated for testing was deeply disturbing to them. Maya projected feelings of understanding and sympathy though. Shadow Beast took a step closer. Its dark form became less agitated and more curious. Maya extended her hand, slowly, the same way she had with the little dragon weeks before. The creature stretched out what might have been a tendril of living shadow and gently touched her fingers. The contact sent a shock through Maya's mind. She could suddenly sense the beast's emotions more clearly. It was frightened and homesick, but also intelligent and capable of complex thoughts. Maya realized that the shadow beasts were not animals to be dominated, but sentient beings who deserved respect. "Are you lonely?" she asked silently, projecting the thought rather than speaking aloud. The shadow beast responded with a wave of agreement and gratitude. It had been trying to communicate with the other students, but they were all too busy trying to control it to listen. Maya spent the rest of her testing time simply talking with the creature, learning about its home world and its family. Group Professor Xchel moved through the testing area, observing each student performance. Most were struggling badly with their assigned creatures. The shadow beasts remained agitated and uncooperative, despite increasingly desperate attempts at mental domination. When the professor reached Maya's station, he stopped in obvious surprise. The shadow beast was calmly floating near Maya, its dark form relaxed and peaceful. It had even allowed her to touch its main body, something that was supposed to be impossible without months of conditioning. Maya and the creature seemed to be having some kind of conversation, though no words were being spoken. "This is highly irregular," Professor Xgel declared loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Shadow beasts do not respond to untrained individuals. There must be some kind of equipment malfunction." Maya looked up from her peaceful interaction with the shadow beast. Several other students had stopped their own struggling attempts to watch what was happening. Liana moved closer, her ancient green eyes bright with interest. "There is no malfunction," Maya said quietly. "The beast is just lonely. It wants to communicate, not be controlled." "Preposterous." The professor snapped. His crystalline features showed clear anger. Six Arms gestured dismissively. "These creatures are barely sentient. They respond only to proper psychic discipline." The shadow beast near Maya made a sound like wind chimes, being stirred by a gentle breeze. It was clearly disagreeing with the professor's assessment. Several other shadow beasts in the hall responded with similar sounds, creating an eerie harmony. Liana stepped forward and addressed Professor Xgel directly. "In my experience, creatures that appear hostile are often simply misunderstood. Perhaps we should listen to what the student has learned." Professor Xgel's 6 eyes focused on Liana. With obvious irritation, the elf was older than almost anyone at the academy, and her people knowledge of nature was legendary. Even the arrogant professor had to show her some respect. "The student has learned nothing of value," he said, stiffly human. "Emotional responses have no place in serious xenobiology. These creatures require firm mental control, or they become dangerous." If to prove his point, Professor Xchel approached Maya's shadow beast and projected a sharp burst of psychic dominance. The creature immediately recoiled its peaceful form, becoming agitated and defensive. It let out a pained wail and fled to the far corner of the testing area. Maya felt anger flare in her chest. The professor had deliberately hurt her new friend just to make a point. She started to move toward the frightened shadow beast, but Professor Xgel blocked her path. Exam is over, he announced. You have all seen what happens when proper protocols are not followed. These creatures cannot be trusted to remain calm without constant supervision. But Maya's shadow beast had been perfectly calm until the professor interfered. Several students had noticed this and were whispering among themselves. Even Korthax, who had failed completely with his own creature, was watching Maya with new interest. The testing session ended with most students having failed to establish any meaningful contact with their assigned shadow beasts. Only Maya had succeeded, and Professor Extel seemed determined to dismiss her achievement as luck or accident after. The other students left. Maya remained in the testing hall. She could see her shadow beast, still huddled in the corner, clearly distressed by the professor's rough treatment. Maya wanted to comfort the creature, but Dr. Velnath appeared at her elbow. "Should come with me," she said gently. "The shadow beasts will be returned to their containment units soon. They need time to recover from the testing session." Maya reluctantly followed Dr. Velnath out of the hall, but she kept looking back at the frightened shadow beast. She had felt a real connection with the creature, something deeper than the simple dominance relationships. The academy taught that evening. Maya sat in the common area reviewing her notes. From the exam, Liana approached and sat down across from her. The elf moved with the fluid grace of someone who had lived for centuries, but her eyes showed genuine curiosity. "I have been observing your methods," the elf said in her wind-like voice. "You do not follow the established protocols, yet you achieve better results than students who have trained for years. How do you explain this?" Maya considered her answer carefully. She did not want to sound arrogant or dismissive of the academy teachings, but she also could not deny what she had experienced. "I think the protocols are wrong," she said. "Finally, the shadow beasts are not animals to be controlled. They are intelligent beings who want to communicate. We should be trying to understand them, not dominate them." Liana nodded slowly, as if Maya had confirmed something she already suspected. "My people once knew ways of speaking with all living things," she said, "but we returned to our forest worlds and let that knowledge fade. Perhaps it is time to remember the old wisdom." Before Maya could ask what she meant, Professor Excel's voice echoed through the common area. "All students report to the main lecture hall immediately. There is an important announcement regarding your final examinations." Maya and Liana joined the stream of students heading toward the lecture hall. The large space filled quickly with beings from dozens of different species. Professor Extel stood at the front, his crystalline form reflecting the overhead lights as he waited for silence. "The semester final examination will be different this year," he announced. When everyone had settled, his 6 arms spread wide in a dramatic gesture. "Each student will be assigned a creature that represents the ultimate challenge in their field of study." A murmur went through the assembled students. Final exams at the academy were legendary for their difficulty. Many students failed and had to repeat entire semesters. "For most of you," the professor continued, "you will work with advanced specimens from your specialized areas of study. But for our exchange student from Earth, I have selected something truly special." Maya felt her heart begin to beat faster. Professor Excel's smile was not kind. 6 arms pointed directly at her as he continued speaking. "Miss Rodriguez will have the honor of attempting to tame a Voidstalker from the Crimson Nebula. These magnificent creatures have never been successfully bonded with by any being in recorded galactic history. They represent the ultimate test of xenobiology skills." The hall fell completely silent. Maya had read about Voidstalkers in her preparation materials. They were legendary predators that existed partially outside normal spacetime. Their psychic abilities were so powerful that most beings went insane just from being near them. Every attempt to study them had ended in failure or death. "This is your chance to prove that human methods have value," Professor Extel declared loudly. "You have 30 standard galactic days to achieve what no other being has ever accomplished. If you fail, you will be expelled from the academy, and Earth participation in our exchange program will be terminated permanently." Maya felt the weight of representing her entire species settle on her shoulders. If she failed, not only would her dreams be crushed, but no other human would ever get the chance to study at the academy around her, the other students whispered. In shock and excitement, some looked sympathetic, others seemed pleased that the arrogant human would finally be put in her place. Liana leaned close and whispered something that Maya almost missed. The old ways, remember the old ways of speaking. With the wild things, Professor Ixchel dismissed the assembly with obvious satisfaction. Maya remained in her seat. As the hall emptied, wondering how she was supposed to accomplish the impossible, the Voidstalker would arrive in 3 days, giving her barely enough time to prepare. But as she thought about the Shadow Beast, and how easily they had connected, Maya began to feel a spark of hope. Maybe the professor's challenge would backfire in ways he never expected. Maybe human empathy could succeed where alien dominance had always failed. She just had to figure out how to survive long enough to prove it. Maya spent the next 2 days in the Academy library researching everything she could find about Voidstalkers. The information was sparse and mostly terrifying. The creatures existed partially in normal space and partially in what scientists called the void. Between dimensions, their psychic abilities were so intense that they could drive observers insane with a single focused thought. Most concerning was the fact that every recorded attempt to capture or study a Voidstalker had ended badly. Ships disappeared, researchers went mad, entire space stations were found empty, with no trace of their crews. The creatures seemed to be made of living shadow and starlight, with no fixed physical form. Maya read account after account of failed encounters. Her confidence wavered with each terrifying description. How was she supposed to communicate with something that existed outside normal reality? Professor Xgel had clearly chosen the most impossible challenge he could think of. On the second evening, Liana found Maya in the library, surrounded by data tablets, and looking defeated. The elf moved quietly between the floating shelves until she reached Maya's table. Her ancient eyes showed concern as she observed the research materials. "You are approaching this incorrectly," Liana said softly, sitting down across from Maya. "These academic records only tell you what others have tried and failed to accomplish. They do not tell you what might actually work." Maya looked up from a particularly disturbing account of a research team that had vanished without trace. "What do you mean?" she asked. Liana glanced around too. "Make sure they were alone in this section of the library, then." She leaned forward and spoke in whispers. "My people are old." Maya Rodriguez, older than most civilizations in this galaxy. Before we retreated to our forest worlds, we knew ways of speaking with creatures that exist beyond normal understanding. Maya felt a spark of hope for the first time in days. "You mean the elves once communicated with Voidstalkers?" "Not Voidstalkers specifically," Liana replied, "but creatures like them, beings that exist between worlds, that touch the void between stars. We called them the Star-Touched, and we learned to speak with them not through dominance, but through understanding." Maya leaned forward eagerly. What kind of understanding? Leon was quiet for a long moment, as if deciding whether to share ancient secrets. Then she began to speak in her wind-like voice. "The Star-Touched are not evil or malicious, as your academic texts suggest. They are lonely, Maya. Imagine existing partially outside of reality, never fully able to connect with the physical world around you. They hunger for genuine contact with other conscious beings." This matched what Maya had felt when communicating with the Shadow Beast. The creature had been lonely and desperate for understanding rather than hostile. "How do you make contact with them?" she asked. Liana smiled for the first time since Maya had known her. "You must offer something they cannot find elsewhere. Complete acceptance without fear, genuine empathy, without trying to control or change them. Most beings are terrified of the Star-Touched, and that fear creates a barrier that cannot be crossed." Maya thought about her experiences with animals back on Earth. The most frightened and aggressive creatures always responded best to patience and calm acceptance. Fear was indeed a barrier that prevented real communication. "But how do I protect myself from the psychic effects?" Maya asked. "The reports say that Voidstalkers can drive people insane just by looking at them." Liana reached into a pouch at her waist and pulled out a small pendant made of what looked like crystallized starlight. It was beautiful, and seemed to glow with its own inner radiance. This is a protection charm, made by my people long ago. It will not block psychic contact, but it will help your mind remain stable during the encounter. Maya accepted the pendant gratefully, feeling warmth spread through her fingers as she touched it. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Liana could get in trouble for interfering with the exam. The elf smiled again, her ancient features showing genuine affection. "Because I see in you something that has been lost from this galaxy for too long. The ability to approach the unknown with wonder instead. I fear your people may be young, but they remember truths that we have forgotten." That night Maya returned to her room with new hope and a clearer plan. Instead of trying to dominate or control the Voidstalker, she would approach it as she had the Shadow Beast, with patience, empathy, and genuine desire to understand rather than conquer. The next morning brought news that the Voidstalker transport had arrived early. The creature was being held in the Academy's most secure containment facility, a section Maya had never seen before. Dr. Velnath came to escort her to the viewing area, where she could observe the creature before attempting any direct contact. The containment facility was deep underground, protected by layers of psychic shielding and energy barriers. Dr. Velnath led Maya through multiple security checkpoints, each one monitored by nervous-looking guards. The deeper they went, the more Maya could feel something pressing against the edges of her mind. "Here we are," Dr. Velnath said. As they reached a final sealed doorway beyond this point, the psychic effects become much stronger. "Are you certain you want to proceed?" Maya touched the pendant Liana had given her, and felt its calming warmth. "Yes," she said, "I need to see what I am." Working with, the door opened onto an observation deck, overlooking a vast circular chamber. Below them the Voidstalker moved in patterns that hurt to watch directly. The creature seemed to be made of living darkness shot through with points of light. Like stars, its form constantly shifted and flowed, never maintaining the same shape for more than a few seconds. Maya felt the creature's psychic presence immediately. It was overwhelming, like standing in a hurricane of thoughts and emotions. But underneath the chaos she sensed something familiar, the same loneliness she had felt from the Shadow Beast, but magnified 1,000-fold. The Voidstalker suddenly stopped moving and looked directly up at the observation deck. Maya met its gaze, which seemed to contain the depth of empty space between stars. She felt her mind reel under the contact, but Liana pendant kept her grounded and stable. In that moment of connection, Maya sensed the creature's true nature. It was not a predator or monster as the academic texts claimed. It was a being of immense intelligence and sensitivity, trapped between dimensions, and desperate for meaningful contact with other conscious minds. Every failed encounter had made it more isolated and more hungry for understanding. Dar Velnath noticed Maya's intense focus on the creature and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You should not stare directly at it for too long," she warned. "The psychic effects can build up." Gradually Maya nodded, but continued to watch the Voidstalker. Its movements seemed random at first, but gradually she began to see patterns. The creature was trying to communicate using a form of expression that existed partially outside normal space. She had never seen anything like it, but somehow it felt familiar. Over the next few days, Maya returned to the observation deck whenever possible. She spent hours watching the Voidstalker and slowly beginning to understand its attempts at communication. The creature seemed to realize that she was different from its previous observers. It began to focus its attention on her, specifically Professor Xgel visited the containment facility regularly, clearly hoping to see Maya, showing signs of the madness that had claimed previous researchers. Instead, he found her calm and focused, making detailed notes about the creature's behavior patterns. His crystalline features showed increasing frustration as the days passed. The 5th day of observation, Maya made a breakthrough. She realized that the Voidstalker movements were not random but followed patterns similar to mathematical concepts she had learned about quantum mechanics. The creature existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and its communication attempts reflected this complex real. Little Liana found Maya in the library that evening, studying quantum physics texts alongside ancient Elven Poetry about speaking with star spirits. The combination seemed strange, but Maya was finding unexpected connections between scientific theory and mystical tradition. You are beginning to understand, Liana observed, sitting down beside Maya. Both science and the old ways point toward the same truth. Reality is far more complex and interconnected than most beings realize. Maya nodded excitedly. I think the Void Stalker is trying to show me something about the nature of space and time itself. Its movements create patterns that exist across multiple dimensions simultaneously. If I could learn to perceive those patterns, I might be able to communicate with it. Liana, eyes brightened with approval. You are learning to see beyond the surface of things. This is the foundation of all true communication with the star. Touched. That night, Maya had vivid dreams about flying through empty space between stars. She felt the loneliness of existing nowhere and everywhere at once. When she woke, she understood something fundamental about the Void Stalker existence. The creature was not trapped between dimensions by accident. It had been created that way, as part of some cosmic purpose she could not yet comprehend. The next morning brought the news that Maya's formal examination would begin in 3 days. She would be allowed to enter the containment chamber and attempt direct contact with the Void Stalker professor. X-Gel seemed confident that this would finally prove human inadequacy, but Maya felt ready in ways she had never expected. Her weeks of observation and Liana guidance had prepared her for something far more significant than a simple examination she was about to attempt. Communication with a form of life that existed beyond normal understanding. Dar Velnith helped Maya prepare for the encounter by teaching her meditation techniques that would help maintain mental stability under extreme psychic pressure. The kind blue-skinned alien seemed genuinely concerned for Maya's safety and impressed by her determination. Lian spent the final evening before the exam sharing more ancient elven wisdom about communicating with beings that existed between worlds. She taught Maya breathing exercises and mental focusing techniques that had been passed down through countless generations. Remember, Liana said, as they prepared to part, the Void Stalker is not your enemy or your test subject. It is a conscious being that has been alone for longer than you can imagine. Approach it with the same compassion you would show to any lonely soul. Maya nodded, understanding that the exam had become about much more than proving human capabilities. It was about bridging a gap between dimensions and offering genuine friendship to a being that had never experienced such acceptance. Tomorrow, she would enter the containment chamber and discover whether human empathy could succeed where alien dominance had always failed. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. Maya fell asleep thinking about starlight and loneliness, and the possibility of making the impossible connection that would change everything. The morning of the examination arrived, with unusual activity throughout the academy. Word had spread about Maya attempt to communicate with the Void Stalker, and students from every department wanted to witness what many expected to be a spectacular failure. The observation deck overlooking the containment chamber, filled with alien faces eager to see the human student finally meet her limits. Professor Exkel stood at the center of the gathering, his 6 arms crossed in satisfaction. The crystalline professor had invited several distinguished guests, including department heads from other galactic universities. He clearly expected Maya's failure to serve as proof that humans had no place in advanced biology. Maya entered the preparation chamber wearing simple protective gear and carrying Liana pendant close to her heart. Dr. Velnith performed final checks on the atmospheric controls and psychic dampening fields that would provide minimal protection during the encounter. Are you certain you want to proceed? The kind alien asked for the final time. Once you enter the chamber, the protective systems will be reduced to avoid interfering with communication attempts. Maya nodded, though her heart was beating rapidly. I am ready, she said, with more confidence than she felt. Liana appeared beside Dr. Velnith, having somehow gained access to the restricted preparation area. The ancient elf placed a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder and whispered words in the old elven tongue. Maya felt a wave of calm strength flow through her, As the blessing took effect, the chamber door opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Maya stepped through into the vast circular space where the Void Stalker waited. The door sealed behind her, leaving her alone with the most dangerous creature. Known to galactic science, the Void Stalker immediately stopped its endless movement and focused all its attention on Maya. The psychic pressure was overwhelming, like standing at the bottom of an ocean of thoughts and emotions. Maya felt her mind reel under the assault, but Liana Pendant kept her consciousness stable. Instead of fighting the psychic contact, Maya did something no previous researcher had ever attempted. She relaxed completely and opened her mind to the creature presence. Rather than trying to block or control the connection, she welcomed it with genuine curiosity and acceptance. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The chaotic storm of psychic energy suddenly organized itself into something resembling communication. Maya felt the Void Stalker's surprise ripple through dimensions. As it realized she was not afraid or trying to dominate it through the psychic link, Maya began to understand the creature's true nature. It was indeed incredibly ancient and intelligent, but not malicious. The apparent hostility that had driven previous researchers insane was actually desperate loneliness and frustration. The Void Stalker had been trying to communicate for centuries, but every being that encountered it responded with fear and attempts at control. Maya projected feelings of sympathy and understanding toward the creature. She thought about her own experiences of loneliness and isolation, especially her first weeks at the academy. The Void Stalker responded with what could only be described as gratitude. Its shifting form became less chaotic and more purposeful. In the observation deck above, Professor Xchel watched in growing disbelief. The human student was not only surviving direct psychic contact with the Void Stalker, but actually seemed to be communicating with it. The creature's agitated movements had calmed, and it was focusing intently on Maya, rather than trying to escape or attack. "This is impossible," the professor muttered, his crystalline features showing shock and anger. "Void Stalkers cannot be communicated with. They are mindless predators, driven by instinct." Alona Liana stepped forward to stand beside the professor, her ancient eyes bright with vindication. "They are neither mindless nor predators," she said calmly. "They are highly intelligent beings trapped between dimensions and starving for genuine contact. Your research methods have been wrong from the beginning." Through the psychic connection, Maya began to see flashes of the Void Stalker memories. She witnessed its origin in the space between stars, where it had been created by forces beyond current understanding. She felt its confusion and pain as it was captured and subjected to experiments by beings who saw it only as a specimen to be studied. The creature had not chosen its existence between dimensions. It had been made that way as part of some cosmic purpose that even it did not fully understand. Its apparent aggression was really desperate attempts to explain this to the beings who captured it, but fear and preconceived notions had made real communication impossible. Maya projected her understanding back to the Void Stalker, along with acceptance of its unique nature. She did not try to change or fix the creature, but simply acknowledged its reality and offered friendship without conditions. The creature response was overwhelming. It had been alone for so long that even this basic acceptance felt like a miracle. The psychic bond between them deepened, and Maya began to perceive reality the way the Void Stalker did. She could suddenly sense the multiple dimensions that surrounded normal space and see how the creature existed simultaneously across several layers of reality. It was beautiful and terrifying and completely unlike anything she had ever imagined. Above, in the observation deck, the gathered students and faculty watched in stunned silence as the Void Stalker began to move in new patterns around Maya. These were not the random chaotic movements they had observed before, but something that resembled a dance or celebration. The creature seemed to be expressing joy for the first time since its captured. Darvelnith monitors showed that Maya's vital signs remained stable, despite the intense psychic contact. Her brain patterns were unlike anything on record, showing perfect synchronization with the creature's emanations rather than the disruption and madness that had affected previous researchers. Professor Xchel refused to accept what he was seeing. "This must be some kind of trick," he declared loudly. "No being can communicate directly with a void stalker without proper psychic conditioning. The human is obviously using hidden technology." Liliana turned to face the professor directly, her ancient authority evident in every line of her posture. "Your arrogance blinds you to possibilities beyond your understanding," she said with quiet power. "My people knew truths about communication with otherworldly beings that your modern methods have forgotten. In the chamber below, Maya was experiencing something that changed her understanding of existence itself. Through the Void Stalker perception, she could see the interconnectedness of all life across multiple dimensions. She realized that consciousness was not limited to single-dimensional beings, but could exist in forms that transcended normal space and time. The creature began sharing more of its knowledge with Maya, showing her visions of other beings like itself, scattered throughout the galaxy. All of them were alone and misunderstood, trapped by their unique nature, and unable to find others who could accept them without fear. The Void Stalker had hoped for centuries that someone would eventually understand. Maya felt tears streaming down her face as she comprehended the creature's isolation. She projected back images from her own life of times when she had felt alone and different. The Void Stalker responded with something like amazement that this small being from a young species could understand emotions that ancient civilizations had never recognized. The psychic bond between them stabilized into something unprecedented in galactic history, a genuine friendship between a human and a Void Stalker, based on mutual understanding and acceptance, rather than dominance or fear. The creature began to show Maya how to perceive the mathematical patterns that governed interdimensional existence above them. Professor Xgel was becoming increasingly agitated as his carefully planned demonstration of human inadequacy transformed into proof of something he could not accept. The other observers were beginning to murmur among themselves, clearly impressed by what they were witnessing. "This changes everything," whispered one of the visiting department heads. "If humans can communicate with Void Stalkers, what other assumptions about impossible creatures might be wrong, Professor?" Xgel's 6 arms gestured frantically as he tried to regain control of the narrative. "The human is clearly in danger," he declared. "We must end this experiment immediately, before she suffers permanent psychic damage." But Maya appeared perfectly healthy and in complete control of the situation. She was moving through the chamber with the Void Stalker following her like a curious pet. The creature had taken on a more stable form, resembling a flowing constellation of stars that moved in harmony with Maya. Placed a restraining hand on Professor Xgel's arm as he moved toward the emergency controls. "Look with your eyes instead of your prejudices," she commanded. "The human has achieved what your entire profession claimed was impossible." Maya could feel the observers above through the Void Stalker enhanced perception. She sensed their amazement, fear, and in Professor Xgel's case, furious denial. The creature shared her amusement at the professor's inability to accept evidence that contradicted his beliefs. Through their connection, Maya learned that Void Stalkers were not random cosmic accidents, but served an important purpose. In maintaining the balance between dimensions, they were like cosmic gardeners, tending to the health of spacetime itself. Their apparent hostility to other beings was really protective behavior, triggered by attempts to capture or control them. The creature showed Maya visions of how the galaxy could benefit from cooperation with its kind. Void Stalkers could provide insights into faster-than-light travel, interdimensional physics, and the true nature of consciousness itself. But this knowledge could only be shared with beings who approached them as equals, rather than specimens. Maya realized that her examination had become something far more significant than anyone had imagined. She was not just proving human capabilities, but opening a door to entirely new forms of interspecies cooperation. The Void Stalker was eager to share its knowledge with any being wise enough to offer genuine friendship. As the hours passed, Maya and the creature continued their remarkable communication. The bond between them grew stronger and more complex, involving forms of consciousness that existed beyond normal understanding, Maya felt her own awareness expanding as she learned to perceive reality through multidimensional eyes. The examination that was supposed to prove human inadequacy had instead revealed possibilities that could revolutionize galactic civilization. Professor X-Gel had indeed created an impossible challenge, but not in the way he intended. Maya's success would force the entire academic establishment to reconsider everything they thought they knew about communication with otherworldly beings. The breakthrough was complete, and the revelation was just beginning.